easy to do because I am very passionate for the information that we're working on. And it's kind of funny because, you know, she says all the different hats that I wear, and it doesn't matter because they all kind of come back to exactly this same piece of working. And so not knowing at all how familiar or unfamiliar any of you are with Pilates, let's say, since that was kind of in the title of what I was doing, you may picture Pilates equipment or have this idea that there's these certain set of exercises that coincide with that. And while, you know, some of that is true, I'm going to be taking principles and showing you some foot exercises and talking you a little bit through the why and how I choose to do these ones. And with hopefully the understanding that no matter what the activity is that you were going to do, whether it was just activities of daily life, or if it was going to be doing an actual Pilates class or a yoga class, or getting on doing beam work, or whatever it was that you were going to be doing, that these things are pertinent on any level. And honestly, for any age and for any condition of the foot, because I'm sure as we all start talking and looking at people's feet, they're not all, they may have been created the same, but they do not all turn out the same by the time we, you know, introduce all of our activities and our wear and tears and whatever flat tires we get on our feet. But this work is helping to, you know, as it's been said, kind of rewild the feet. And so I like to talk first about this concept because people always, you know, and of course, I don't know what realm of work all of you guys are in, but certainly I'm assuming it might be just for yourself, but you might also be helping and expressing to other people. And so what I'm about to kind of tell you about right now helps you how to answer that question when they're like, oh, you're an expert or you know about this. What exercise do I need to do for my foot? And they right away, they like back you into a corner of like, I'm going to do one. What one can I do? And really there isn't just one. They're asking for something that doesn't really exist. The foot has so many functions to it that it has to be able to do a myriad of things. And so I've used this language when I teach these like foot seminars. I've used this language of the spread versus the spring. So our foot is meant to spread, right? It's supposed to have all this mobility and spread out. But if you know anything about gait cycles, it's also supposed to become a rigid lever as we walk forward. So all of those bones have to come into an assigned place and create enough rigidity to be able to swing through and push off. So this spread versus spring. I have people, and more so than my diagnosing it, even if I do see it and I'm like, oh yeah, I know what they're going to need to do, I try to get them to come into more understanding of their foot. So even just thinking about your own foot, you start going, well, do I already have a lot of spread, and do I lack some of the spring? Which sometimes the things that show that is if you maybe have an arch that, you know, is flat more of the time, not lifted. If you're flexible in other ligaments and joints, that's just sort of a general way to go. You probably have more spread. If you never exercise your feet, they might not have enough strength to create that rigidity. So just kind of starting to generally classify, not on any medical scale, not using any standards, but just in general for them to understand the function of their foot in these terms. So that would be more of the spread. The spring is more of the person who stands oftentimes more on the outside of their foot. Sometimes these people will say, I don't need any arch support because I have a really high arch. And some of these people will, and of course, I'm talking about people who wear shoes a lot. And they reference their foot to their shoe. Or they may say, oh, my arch is so high, I need an arch support because it's just too much to be hanging out on its own. So again, these are just generalizations of helping people get a little bit better understanding of where on this appropriate spectrum their foot may lie. So using the terms like spread or spring, which one do you have more of and which one do you not have enough of? And then as we go through this little outline of exercises basically that I've put together to reach all of these things. As we put these things together, you can indicate which exercises have more of an emphasis in one or the other, right? And so while I'm not telling people one exercise, I'm telling them why this exercise, based on how their foot is, would be beneficial to them. So trying to create ownership right away, your foot, your understanding, you applying the movements and getting out of it what you need to get out of it, as opposed to repetitions 8, 9, 10, okay, did it, check, right? You don't earn things that way. You have to create it to your full body function. So we'll go through these exercises. Some of them, you know, after a while, you probably go, well, Jennifer, you said it was for one or the other, and you're telling me again, this one's for both. That's because of the intentionality we put in the exercise. It's what you bring to the movements. So the movements themselves are fortified with the ability to do all that. And when you connect it to someone's thinking and understanding of their own foot, it then begins giving that ownership of how now that's going to work with the rest of the body. So you may have also picked up on the fact that that I'm trying to get some neurocenters to also, like, from the brain, and that's a long way all the way down to the foot. So sometimes it takes a really long time to get those messages. So we also want to put into practice that it isn't about how good the exercise looks or how good I am at it, or if I can't do it the way you just said, it doesn't look like what you said, Jennifer, or it doesn't look like what you did, that actually makes it a more valuable exercise to that body. So we want to be really aware of those things, and especially aware of those things when we're trying to teach other people or bring them into that sense of empowerment, that they have something that they can apply to make a difference in how their foot is. So I moved up close to the camera so that you could see me talking, but now I'm going to step back a little bit so you can get more of a view. I am going to start with the first exercises in a seated position. They can all be done in a standing position, but I'm going to sit right now so that I can kind of bend and show you my foot. You're welcome to do whichever you want. You're also welcome to not do them if you don't want to, but if you have a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball works. I'll say a little bit about that. My favorite thing about the lacrosse ball, if you're kind of wondering, like, oh, there's a bazillion balls out there that, you know, do all these different things, different sizes. First of all, I understand you got to work with what you have, you know, and sometimes you're just really creative and you grab whatever you have, and it doesn't make less of the exercise to do it with whatever you've had. I've had people who didn't have a ball, but they had a water bottle that they can turn on its side. Okay, so it's a little bit different, but again, intentionality of applying the principles is what we're really looking for. Back to why I choose the lacrosse ball, and I try and make that accessible to people, is that it won't change its shape when we're pressing on it. So we can apply pressure, and it won't change the ball, but it does change the pressure resistance back into our foot and our soft tissue. So it's a way of getting a massage therapist without actually getting a massage therapist or reflexologist to work on your foot. So it's very, very handy and lovely in that way. Also, if you've ever felt a lacrosse ball, the way it's smooth, but it isn't, you can't just gloss, it's not glossy. You know, it has this little bit of traction. It kind of has like little teeth in a way that don't feel bad, but they kind of grab the skin and they move it. So the outer surface of the skin will sort of glide up and above and down and around in a different direction than the tissues left underneath it. So we're starting, I'm sure you've heard like fascia, you know, you're getting some fascial release and that kind of stuff. And then depending on the amount of pressure, you can also take that to a deeper layer where now you're, you know, moving the next layer of fascia and then on top of the muscle. So you can kind of graduate into the depth of the tissue that you're working with. And so, and a lot of that just ends up being personal preference that is often dictated by what your body needs. There's going to be a lot of intuition that goes into this. And I do feel like the lacrosse ball gives you lots of gears without having different equipment. But then again, you know, I just want to remind you, just because you don't have that, that might be something to look into, but any ball will do. And if you think about those principles, you'll start recognizing, like if you're really sliding on it, you'll be like, oh, what if that like grabbed my foot and held the skin back while my foot moved forward? You could start to connect how there might be a deeper layer of working into those tissues, okay? So just think about that. That's why that ball is good. Okay, I'm gonna move back a little bit, and I'm hoping my eyes are good enough to see you guys as well. In case you have a question or anything while we're doing this, I won't feel interrupted if you have a question, or if you wanna write them down, and we can ask those a little bit more at the end as well. So I'm sitting, probably not in my favorite position because I've kind of got my feet a little bit lower, but I'm not quite squatting, but I think it's a good position for you to be able to see what we're working on. So I have the lacrosse ball on the floor, and the first one is simply, well, I say simply rolling, but I'm going to give you some direction for rolling. So if you picture, if you're able to picture, if you've ever looked at a skeleton, whether it's a model or a picture of the bones, or if you even just feel on your hand, which is similar to the foot in some regards, and just kind of go, well, there's bones all the way from the toes back into the foot down to the heel. And they, you know, some of those bones are even called rays. So you can picture them like these 5 rays. Underneath your foot, I want you to start with the ball rolling on the rays all the way from the toe and back to the heel. So like I started at my little toe side, and so I rolled down the foot and back up the foot with the ball on the ray, and then I stop and just switch it 1 gear in and go down the ray of the next toe. And you don't have to, it doesn't matter which side you start on, but just intentionally trying to get these rays. As you're working on that and getting coordinated with that, I'm going to mention a few other things important to keep in mind. The leg should be moving in a plumb line position. So hip, knee, and foot. You're also working to control the movement that they go directly out and in. So that becomes a tall order since I put you on a ball, right? And it might move all over and you're like, wow, I've got the swervy road my foot's taking. Try and exhibit that control up in the hip and the knee so that you can pass along those bones. Great, and once you've got a forward and back pass on all the bones, we're gonna change, and I often get people to say, really, how can you tell the difference? Just hang with me, remember, it's intentionality. So now I'm gonna take that ball and I'm gonna drop between 2 of the rays, okay? So now I'm more in the soft tissue. I'm moving between the rays of 2 toes at a time, all the way down through the sole of my foot to the heel. And this is where I'll often ask clients, you know, does one of those, either on the rays or between the rays, do they have a difference in how they feel depth-wise? Good. So back to that concept of spread and spring, this exercise has more of a purpose in the spread. It's helping a rigid foot sort of break up and recognize all of its parts, all the many bones that are in the foot, the separation of the toes, whether it be from the forefoot to the rear foot or side to side in all of those tarsal bones. We're trying to break them up. So then go ahead and take the ball to the other side. Same thing. I'm going to remind you to keep focus on the alignment of the leg, which is very much a Pilates thing, but really no more or less than it is in yoga or in dance or in, you know, our athletics. It's the same thing, having intention of how we're controlling our body. I'm moving back and forth over the ray or the bony part of the foot, which, to answer the question I threw out there before, tends to feel more superficial. You're going to feel bone soon if you're rolling over the bone. And then after I've made that pass, I'm going to drop in between those bones and roll all the way back and all the way forward to maybe get more of a sense of depth. So I'm sort of pushing the bones out of the way of the tissue. So you can almost picture it getting more spread in the rolling. So many times, I'm sure, especially if you guys are all following footwork and stuff, rolling the foot on the ball is a very common suggestion, right? And people may get benefits by just taking any old ball and rolling on it. That's great. There's a lot to be gained there. But if you put this intentionality to it, it doesn't just become that exercise that's really easy to not do because it sounds so easy, right? You've brought thought to it, and there's more of a reason for doing it. So I took something very simple and made it complicated, but hopefully it's also drawn the attention into why we're doing it. So that was the first one, rolling. The next one is a heel press, and you're going to take the ball and you're going to put it, it's not directly on the heel, you're going to roll it just to the front edge of the heel where it's almost getting into the arch of your foot. Many people will say, I have a heel spur or I have plantar fasciitis, and that's where they're referring to that pain in there. And I want you to try and get, so I'm sitting, if you're standing, you would direct everything directly over it. In sitting, from my knee down, I want my lower leg bone to be perpendicular, directly over that. And then I'm actually going to put the ball of my foot down on the ground. So you can imagine, depending on the size of your ball, you may or may not be able to completely do that. The lacrosse ball seems to work pretty universally. And then once I've got that lined up, ball of foot on the ground, heel, front of the heel, almost into the arch on the ball. And then I'm going to use my muscles in the back of my leg, and I'm going to press down into that ball. I want to get a little bit of an acupressure point there. This one, this is not my specialty, but I've come to learn from reflexologists that this actually coincides with the hamstring. So if you have tight hamstrings, which mean a lot of different things, a lot of different ways to work on those, but this is a very indirect way to directly help your hamstrings. So pressing down in the ball, and that's work through the foot. Good, and then I've still got my hip, knee, toe alignment. And then I'm just gonna take the ball, switch it over to the other side. Same thing, a quick little line up, ball of foot on the ground, heel, front of heel on the ball. So I am trying to get into the softer tissue, not really just being on the heel. And then with intention, using back of the leg. So don't try and use through the top of the knee to push. Really use muscles in the back of the leg to try and press down into that ball, like you're trying to stabilize it. If someone were trying to grab it from you, you're holding it right in place. So this one I call a heel press. Again, in standing or sitting. An individual with balance issues, you would really want to be careful with standing because this is bringing them closer to a single leg stand. Good. Okay, and whatever we did to the back of the foot, we want to do similar to the front of the foot. So now I'm going to take the ball, and I call this one ball of foot to the ball, and then I'm going to press that heel down to the ground. And then depending on what you know about Pilates, I'll tell you something that's a little funny, ironic. We work out barefoot. We do all of our Pilates barefoot, but so many of our exercises are called high heel shoe, right? I never want people to leave and get into their high heel shoes. I can't control all of them, but that's not the intention. But this, these exercises, the one where we had our heel up, that's high heel shoe. This one's great because it reverses that, right? So it's the ball of the foot is up and the heel is on the ground. And then we want to do something very specific in the front end of our foot where the ball of our foot is over the ball. You want to reach the toes long and grasp, almost like you're trying to grab the ball with your foot, keeping the heel down on the ground. Sometimes I say it's like letting the pizza dough, or I'm in the Southwest, so I say a tortilla, go out and over the ball. Like I just want the whole foot to drape. Do we have a question? Yes, good. Tortillas?
Can I do the exercise in a lunge position or just sitting or standing? Can I do in a lunge, squatting, or just lay down or in a crab position?
From the squat position?
Yes, or crab, like in a squat position, or in a lunge position, or
On the ball. You say, can you do it on the ball?
Or in a crab position.
Yeah, you can do them from any. Yeah, any position is completely doable. You know, I'm kind of trying to start this as figuring out from your foot. So yeah, any of these can be extrapolated into a different position or something you're already doing or something you need to make more challenging. So you can, absolutely. Today I'm showing them mostly for figuring out what your foot needs.
Yes.
And then applying them to those different positions. But yes, because like I said, this isn't my favorite position at all.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so then we're taking the toes down and then spreading them out. So you want to do the opposite. So you can see in this one, going back to, is this one a spread or a spring? It's definitely both, right? Because as I grip my toes over, I'm strengthening the intrinsic muscles to be able to do that coordinated movement. But at the same time, I'm also trying to get them to mobilize and create that difference between the different bones. So this is a really good one that it's like, I'm hard pressed to say what it is, but if you said, you know, I really need to work on mobility in my foot, then you would do it with the intention and maybe the rhythm of getting movement in your foot. You know, if you needed it to be strong because you had too much flexibility and movement and you needed to get the intrinsics to work, I would hold that end position and really pretend like you were going to pick up the ball with your foot, with again, not expecting you to actually be able to do that. So give it a second and try it on the other foot as well. That's our grip and spread and grip and spread. The bad thing about going too fast is that your feet will feel different if one gets more than the other. So keep that in mind when you're planning your exercise time. Okay, then the last two we're going to do in sitting they're relatively simple. Again, the one with the ball, I call it the Invigorating Shiver. So really getting into this alignment, it's almost like if your legs are there, I will call this the train track or toaster slots. They're trying to keep into their own slot. And then quickly moving the foot forward and back, quickly. So it's an invigorating shiver. It kind of taps into that neurological system. You know, you want to be stable when you're doing it, but just kind of get it riled up. Okay, and switch it over to the other one and get that one going. Right, bringing some life, maybe some joy into that foot and how it moves. Right, so we've done very individual things with each foot. We've done it on both, but they've done it in their own form and with their own ability. So now let's bring it together. That's another part of this that makes it sort of Pilates-ish, is that we always want to bring things then back to our center and our midline, you know, seeking that symmetry, which we know is not innately always there. And then I'm going to place the ball between my ankles. And, you know, our bones aren't always exactly the same, neither is our soft tissue. So you might want the ball actually on the ground, holding it between the heels. My favorite little spot is I lift it up a little bit, and it's right underneath my malleolus or my ankle bone, but it's a little bit off the ground. And then I'm going to lift the ball with my heels, keeping my balls of feet on the ground. And I don't know about you guys, mine want to cramp right in my calves a little bit, right? So I say that so you don't think, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? The person presenting gets that too. We all get that, right? Maybe not all the time, but at certain places and times. And then the knees, I have this invisible magnet. I mean, it would be ideal if I put another lacrosse ball right between my knees and tried to create that sameness of those magnets. And I'm just lifting and lowering. I'm bringing that foot movement together and in the center with the legs together. Okay, so those are the first 5 that I'm recommending. You know, we did them in sitting, you can do them in standing, but helping you to discover, is this for spread or is this for spring? Okay, the next ones, you can still think the same things, but set the ball aside And for safety, make sure it's set where it's not going to roll underneath, because now I'm going to give you the option to stand up. You don't have to, but I am going to give you the option to stand up. So I'm going to stand here, which means you use my face. That's okay. It's all about my feet. Okay. And so in standing, oftentimes I'll tell people just, you know, step, 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 and then where your feet land, let them land, and just kind of take a look at them. Okay, if you're sitting, you can do that too. Even though you're not walking, you can still do that. And take a look at them, and just getting them about 6 bones distance. So thinking about your butt bones, your, you know, the end of your pelvis where that are, and drop plumb lines all the way down, and get your feet to kind of be in that position. And if you tend to toe out a whole lot, see if you can correct without it being painful or too far out of your neutral. Try and find that position. And then we're going to do what I call foot anchors. So the bottom of each of your foot has a tripod anchor, or we're going to work it like it has a tripod anchor. So ball of the foot has 2 points and the heel has a point. And all 3 of those points need to be rooted or anchored into the ground. Toes are light, non-gripping. And you're going to pull the ball of your foot and the heel towards one another, sort of making what I call a short foot. So your foot sort of shortens up as you draw those together. You sort of create your arch, but not by rolling the feet out, but rather by drawing them closer together. So that's your short foot. And then release it. Okay, so this one is going to have more of a bias in finding the spring, the strength in your foot, the spring, finding that rigid lever, or how to make the intrinsic muscles work to give form to your foot. Good. One more, pulling it in and letting them go. That's another one that can sort of perpetuate cramps in your feet. So don't be alarmed. That's kind of how it happens. Next one is just a big toe lift. Leave all 4 of the other toes down and go hitchhiking. I'm not sure if that reference is true, if everybody gets that, but lifting the big toe up and then purposely bringing it down, and then lifting the other 4 up, leaving the big toe down. So I'm only separating it into 2. You certainly could graduate into single toes, 1 toe at a time, even down the little 4. But I always start with this one, separating the big toe and the other 4. Looking at it helps build that neurological pattern. Also, doing what you're doing with your feet in your hands, because you're capable probably in your hands of doing that. It sends a really good reciprocal message down to the feet to get that working. So this is the one I say, don't judge how good or how bad, just work it. It's very satisfying to have somebody coming back going, look what I can do with my toes now. And you know they've done it. They've had to lay down those neurological tracks. Okay, then, and then you can also, taking that one, you can get a little bit more exaggerating into waving, or I call it playing piano keys with your toes. What you want to make sure, though, is that the ball of foot, those anchors we talked about, that you're not lifting your anchors in order to wave your toes. Keep the ball of foot and heel down and try to wave the toes. And usually we're all, you know, Mozart, Beethoven, one direction, and we go the other direction. It's just ugly. Right? But it's okay. It's good to have that challenge in our brain and try and get that to work. It does get better. And being the best is not the goal. Okay, the very last one, again, standing or sitting, but is literally going to be a foot wave as far as like lifting the heel, coming up to the ball of the foot, and then rising off the ball of the foot to the toes. So essentially, I'm in a single leg stance here. And then bringing it back down to the ball of the foot, envisioning all the other bones coming down before the heel goes down, and getting that press in a similar way we did with the acupressure on the ball. And so just rolling up and back a few times, you're starting to work someone into a standing, walking, moving position from this point. Good. And then the other one for a few. This is a great way to start progressing someone into single leg standing. They think they're working the moving foot, but they're just as much working the standing foot. Okay, So a little thing about foot anchors that I want to say is that we use those anchors either in sitting or standing, but we use them with the foot on something, touching something. But I also want to preface to you, and I'm going to lay down here and get my feet in the air. So many of our exercises and work that we do, like I'm kind of going into a 90-90 position here. And, you know, feet are just, I call them dead fish on the end of the ankles. Like people get their legs there and then their feet are just out there doing who knows what. So using foot anchors in the air, you know, whether they can be flexed, they can be pointed, they can be what I call a soft flex, but they're foot anchors. They're paying attention to where the ball of their foot is. So from the little toe side to the big toe side across their foot, theirs is always in the same plane, and in the same plane as the other foot as well. Okay, so thinking about that, if they're laying on their back, if they're lying on their bellies prone with their feet up or their feet on the ground, right? Sometimes they just go out to the side. So having intention through the feet, no matter what other, you know, work that you're doing. So just don't let those anchors go away just because you're not standing or giving proprioception through the feet. Creating that is going to bring the rest of the body into an alignment. And so that's why with Pilates, that's why we always work the footwork and try and get that into it. And like I said, I don't care if it's Pilates or what it is. I find it's working with people who go, Pilates? What's that? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we're naming it and calling it, but to be able to work that. So I think I've maximized my time there. You can tell I like this stuff because it's really easy to talk through. So just as a quick little reminder, you know, looking at spread and spring, and then using all of those exercises to put intentionality onto how you're getting someone to use that or how to apply it to their body. Yeah.
So I wanted to just say thank you so much, Jennifer. There's some really cool things in there that I want to I wanted to say to you about when you gave the cue about the hamstring press rather than the heel press. That was amazing. But what I wanted, like I said, honor our time together. And I said that it was going to be a 45-minute class. So what we would like to do, though, is to continue this conversation afterwards. And so you can feel free to send Jennifer questions through me, and I will also give you her email address and her website, which is aligndefine.com. But I'll put all of that in the recording notes, and then we can continue this conversation afterwards, because as we start to wind down our class, for the next 5 or 6 minutes, I'll take you through a guided, short guided meditation and silent, just some moments of silence to end our class together today. So if you have something comfortable like a blanket to lay on, or some place where you can lay comfortably, or even sit in a comfortable, relaxed position, please go ahead and get yourself situated. So one of the areas in our program that we talk about in the Foot Nerd program is mindfulness and meditation. It seems to be one of the more difficult projects, just coming to a place of stillness. And when you have a guided meditation, it's really wonderful to give your brain something novel to do. So for the next few minutes, 3 minutes or so, you'll just follow the sound of my voice, and you will allow your breath to just release control of your actual breath. So I encourage you to not try to do anything, fix anything, or change anything about the way you are, except for to get as comfortable as you can possibly be for the next 6 minutes of class. And your only job here for the next few minutes together is to follow the sound of my voice as we take a tour just around your body, verbally. So I'll say a part of your body and you will take your awareness to that body part, or you can even say the name of that body part in your own brain. And if your mind drifts away, that's natural. Your brain is designed to think 60 to 80,000 thoughts in a day. So you're not doing anything wrong if your brain is thinking. Just bring your awareness back to the sound of my voice. So notice the sounds in the room around you, outside your actual skin and flesh. Dropping your gaze or closing your eyes. Soften the space in between your eyebrows. And now with the awareness that your eyeballs themselves are actually little pieces of your brain that are external to your skull. Can you relax your eyes in their eye sockets so that they're just resting in your bony eye sockets? Your eyes can be held there. And soften the space between your eyebrows again. Relax your face muscles. Notice your shoulders, your chest, your belly, your hips, your thighs, your knees, your shins, your ankles, and your feet. And notice your upper arms, your elbows. Your awareness goes to the forearms, your wrists, and your hands. And now take your attention to your whole entire body and notice any places that are gripping or holding on, and just gently ask them to soften. Maybe there's something in your belly or your hip that just wants to stay gripping. Give a little request for that area to release. And now bring your awareness to your right hand, your right thumb, your index finger, your right middle finger, your ring finger on the right side, and your pinky finger. Your right wrist, your right forearm. Take your attention to your right elbow, your shoulder, your right armpit, your right hip, your right thigh, your right knee. Follow my voice to your right shin, your right ankle, your right foot, your right big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, pinky toe, the whole entire foot together. Your awareness goes to the whole right side of your body, loose and easy, relaxed, resting. Your awareness goes to the left hand, the left thumb, left index finger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky finger, wrist, forearm, elbow, upper arm, left shoulder, your left armpit, your left waist, thigh on the left side, your left knee, your left shin, left ankle, left foot, your great toe on the left side, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, pinky toe, your entire left foot. Remaining awake and alert, the whole left side of your body rests nice and easy, relaxed, perfect just the way you are. Bring your attention to the top of your head, the space between your eyebrows. Go all the way back to the middle of your brain, the back of your throat. And now we're inside the chest, the diaphragm, the belly organs, the hips, the two thighs together, the knees, the ankles, the shins, and both feet. Bring your awareness to the whole entire body, just as you are, resting easy, relaxed, soft. The brain is awake and alert, and the body rests. Now, ever so gently, take an intentional breath. Do not give up your stillness too quickly as you gently rock your head from side to side. Wiggling your fingers and your toes. And if you are resting in the reclining position, make your way to right side fetal posture. And if you are sitting, keep your eyes closed and your gaze down. It's here that you acknowledge the effects of your practice, that you came together and you got on your mat and you participated in something that is wonderful for your health. And you acknowledge here that what you do for your own personal health is also extraordinarily good for the community around you. If you're lying down, make your way to a seated posture facing front, going slow, easy does it. And if the mood strikes and you feel inspired, draw your hands right into your chest with your thumb on your sternum. Acknowledge yourself and the people who participated. And thank you so much for joining Jennifer and I today. We hope that we get to do this again with you. We welcome your feedback and any questions. And I'm looking really forward to getting to know you all better. And Jennifer, thank you so much. That was wonderful. If you have any
You're very welcome.
questions, yeah, feel free to ask us questions. We will definitely answer them. Any feedback you have or any insights, I know I'm looking forward to chatting with you. And I hope you have a wonderful night or day or wherever you are. Go get after it. Thanks again.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Nice to meet you all.